Well, the Minister of Emergency Preparedness said, quote, "At no point did our government pressure or interfere with the operational decisions of the RCMP, including their communication strategy. Yet, only 10 days after the biggest mass shooting in Canadian history, the Commissioner of the RCMP was recorded saying, 'It was a request that I got from the Minister's office.'" Ooh. Furthermore, she said she was waiting for a call from the Prime Minister so that she could apologize for not having released the information that the politicians wanted out. They wanted this information out so that they could advance their partisan agenda. Will they resign?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam President, the member opposite knows really well that one of the most fundamental principles of our democracy is that politicians do not interfere in police investigations or police operations. Let me be absolutely clear. We believe that that is a sacrosanct principle of our democracy, and at no moment ever our government has ever interfered in police investigation or police operation, nor we will ever do so. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
And yet a recording from the Commissioner of the RCMP shows that that is exactly what they did. It was, quote, "It was a request that I got from the Minister's office." And I shared with the Minister that that it was in fact going to be in the release, and it wasn't. I'm now sitting on a request in my phone that the Minister wants to speak with me. She says further, "I'm waiting for a call from the Prime Minister so that I can apologize." Apologize for not releasing sensitive investigative information to advance the Liberal Party's partisan agenda. With this revelation of falsehood stated by this Minister in this House, will he resign?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, let me repeat once again, at no point did our government attempt to direct or otherwise interfere with police operations. Let me quote what Commissioner herself stated to testimony to parliamentarians, and I quote, "Let me be clear. I did not interfere in the investigation, I did not receive direction, and I was not influenced by government officials regarding the public release of information, and more importantly, on the direction of the investigation. I ensured that operational independence was maintained in all my interactions with government as I do today." This is a direct quote from the...
No.
Madam Speaker, the newly released audio recordings of the RCMP Commissioner confirms that the Minister pressured the Commissioner to release sensitive information about the ongoing investigation into the worst mass killing in our history. By requesting this information be released to further the Liberal political agenda, the Minister politically interfered in the RCMP investigation and he misled a parliamentary committee about it. For this, the Minister must resign. Will he resign today?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I will restate this really important principle because I think it's worth repeating, that in our democratic part of the system, politicians do not interfere in police operations or police investigations. At no point did our government instruct anyone to release any information, because we would never violate the sacrosanct principle of interfering in a police investigation or police operation, as was the case in this circumstance.
The Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
The former Minister of Public Safety misled a parliamentary committee on the record, Madam Speaker. He said he was not aware the Commissioner would release sensitive information, and he said he never asked her to reveal that information, but both claims are now proven to be completely misleading with the new audio recording. Worse yet, the Minister knew the release of this information would jeopardize the investigation into the worst mass killing in Canadian history, and this was all for Liberal political gain, Madam Speaker. He must resign today. Will he resign?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, at no point did our government attempt to direct or otherwise interfere the police operations that was taking place in that tragic incident that took place in Nova Scotia. And let me re-quote what the Commissioner said in a parliamentary committee on July 25th of this year. She stated, Speaker, "Let me be clear, I did not interfere in the investigation, I did not receive direction, and I was not influenced by government officials regarding the public release of information, and more importantly, on the direction of the investigation. I ensured that operational independence..."
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Commissioner Lucky told the Nova Scotia RCMP that she wanted the details of the makes and the models of the weapons used in Canada's most deadly mass shooting released. Why? Because the minister pressured her to do so. We know they spoke about it. He knew it would jeopardize the investigation, but the minister had legislation coming, and this was part of a communications exercise for him. It was not about the investigation, the victims, or public safety. He played politics with a mass shooting investigation. What time today will he resign?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the independence of police operations is a key principle in our democracy and one that our government deeply respects. At no time did our government attempt to interfere in police operations. That has never taken place. It's a sacrosanct principle of our democracy, and we'll always live by it.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Madam Speaker, in an accountable of an RCMP commissioner working with a minister to cover up the politicization of the biggest mass killing in Canadian history would result in immediate resignation. Not only did the minister mislead the House about knowing what we've all heard on tape, the minister was advised that releasing this information would jeopardize the investigation, and he asked for it to be done anyway. He put politics above the safety of Canadians and then covered it up. So what time today will he resign?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, what happened in Nova Scotia by way of that mass shooting is an absolute tragedy. Innocent people lost their lives. Our focus has been to ensure that through this inquiry,
Can we listen to the answers the same way we listen to the questions, please? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Our focus, Madam Speaker, has been through the inquiry to make sure that we learn the lessons from how to prevent such mass shootings ever to take place in any part of Canada. That investigation was led by the RCMP. The government did not interfere in that investigation, but because that is a fundamental principle of our democracy, politicians do not interfere with police operations.
Honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
Madame la Présidente, cette affaire est...
Madam Speaker, this is very serious. During this tragedy in Halifax, the government claims it never interfered in the process, and it's completely false. Yesterday, a recording was made public about a meeting that happened a few days after that situation where we clearly see that the government interfered. When the commissioner said, I flagged it because it was a request from the minister's office, and I told the minister that the information would be released, and then it wasn't. It was a request. I told the minister. When will the minister resign? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, the independence of police operations is part of our democracy. Our government has deep respect for this. At no point did our government try to interfere in the investigation. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. I will repeat. We got this information publicly yesterday. I flag it because it was a request I got from the minister's office, and I told the minister the information would be released, and then it wasn't. I told the minister. What did we find out? That the commissioner at the RCMP was waiting for the Prime Minister's call for what? To apologize. It has no place at all in a self-respecting democracy. When will the minister resign? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The member in our democracy, politicians do not interfere in police operations or police investigations, as has been the case in this matter. We did not interfere in a police operation or police investigation. That has been confirmed by the commissioner herself when she testified before a parliamentary committee in July of this year, where she clearly said that she was not asked to direct the investigation, nor she was, and she worked hard to maintain the independence of that investigation.
Madam Speaker, the Minister of Emergency Preparedness repeatedly told this House that, quote, at no point did our government pressure or interfere in the operational decisions of the RCMP, including their communications strategy. Audio recordings of Commissioner Lucky state, quote, it was the request that I got from the minister's office, and I shared with the minister that it was going to be in the news release, and it wasn't. The minister directly interfered in an RCMP investigation for the purpose of advancing their political agenda. When will the minister resign for misleading Parliament?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the members opposite can ask the same question as many different ways as possible. The answer remains the same, that in our democracy, one of the fundamental principles is that the government does not interfere in any police operation or police investigation.
The Honourable Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Madam Speaker, Commissioner Lucky told Parliament that, quote, she was not directed to publicly release information about weapons used to help advance pending gun control legislation. But we now have audio recordings where the Commissioner states, quote, does anyone know what's going on with the world of guns? They're trying to get legislation going. The Commissioner pressured her subordinates under direction from the Minister to advance the government's political agenda. In her own words, quote, she didn't come through for the Minister. The Commissioner misled Parliament. When will the government demand her resignation?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I do want to again stress the fact that the Commissioner testified to parliamentarians at a committee in July where she said that I did not receive direction and I was not influenced by government officials regarding the public release of information. Speaker, she's stating exactly the practice, which is politicians do not interfere in police operation or police investigations. Our government abides by that really important principle, and at no time did the government interfere in a police investigation.
Madam Speaker, Nova Scotians lost loved ones and an entire community was devastated by a mass shooting. People deserve honest answers from this government. Yesterday, in recordings released by the Commission, it's clear that the former Minister of Public Safety and the RCMP Commissioner's stories don't add up. If the Liberal government interfered with an investigation into the worst mass shooting in Canadian history for their own political gain, Canadians need to know. So who is telling the truth, the Minister or the RCMP Commissioner?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I want to remind the member opposite again, and I'm sure he's aware of this most important principle in our democracy, which is that politicians do not interfere in police operations. They do not interfere in police investigations. That's a sacrosanct principle, Madam Speaker, that our government will always live by. At no point ever the minister or the government interfered in a matter of police operation or investigation, nor it will ever do so. Thank you.